Yo, what's up, good people? It's the voice from the Phantom Geek Zone back again. As usual, I'm Izzy,
I'm Riyaal.
and we're back with another hot review. So, today we're continuing our MCU recap series,
Yes.
and we're gonna be touching on Captain America the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, so second one in the installment.
Second one in the Captain America installment, and yo, man.
Is this the first one that Russo's directed as
Yes,
well?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is also, the introduction of the Russo brothers, and I mean, depending on how big a fan you are of the MCU, the Russo brothers are arguably, the most important directors that we've ever had. Yeah. Because if I say pair of directors, then it sounds like I'm comparing them to other pairs, but just in terms of people that have directed MCU movies, these guys are way, way up there. Probably. Arguably second to John Favreau because
fair.
Yeah, but point being, man, needless to say,
You're a big fan.
Crazy excited to finally get to this review. It feels like for quite some time we were stuck in this lull of the movie was okay, which was hard to do, especially knowing how many great movies are still to come.
But I guess this kind of starts the trend now.
It does. Yeah. That's the other exciting part. Yeah. The fact
that trends end. So
Amen.
Take what you want.
I'm gonna enjoy it while I'm here. Yeah. That's the thing. So let's get right into it, man. Look, we are in our second installment, but of course we've pretty much seen every MCU movie, and we are well aware that Captain America by far is touted as the greatest trilogy that the MCU has given us. We got a solid start with the first Avenger, and then now we've got the Winter Soldier. But let's not speak
on the third one yet.
Let's not speak on the third one yet. But also let's not speak preemptively as far as exactly what we think. As usual, we're gonna break it down and then sum it up at the end. But yeah, man, I want you to just kick us off as far as on an overall perspective, right? The shift from the first movie over into this one, and what are some of the elements that made it so great?
So let's see. First movie, you could say it was more of a war movie. Obviously set in World War II. And it was just establishing characters.
Yeah.
Now we're 90 years or so later, 70 years, I think that's the one they said.
Yeah.
And this movie is not a war movie. I was rewatching the rewatch. I was just like, "Oh, this is actually a really good spy movie. It's an espionage movie. It's not your Avengers where they're fighting aliens. It's internal conflict, and they're trying to resolve that." So I think the main thing for me is just the shift from being a war movie, where there's a clear defined enemy and you know who you're fighting, to a spy movie where you have to be more tactical and subtle, and your enemy is kind of yourself, your own people. You don't know who to trust. That was the main theme there. So I think that was the main shift there. I liked that a lot of the characters did carry over. I guess we've actually gotten to know a few characters now. We've seen Captain America a few times. We've seen Black Widow, Nick Fury, Maria Hill in certain instances, but you got to see more of her now. Even though she was still a side character. And I think this was the nice first introduction to Sam.
Yes.
Because I was like under the impression like he would appear much earlier, but I was like on your left is in this movie, and I'm like, oh, okay. First introduction into Sam. First introduction into reintroduction into Bucky. So Bucky is the Winter Soldier. No spoiler. And then also what I really liked in this one, although it was a spy movie really concentrated around S.H.I.E.L.D., they were dropping a lot of nuggets into the extended universe. So I think they name dropped Doctor Strange.
Yes. The people they were aiming to kill.
So they name dropped Doctor Strange, and that was just nice, pleasant surprise.
Which is about 2 years or so before the release of the movie, even
so you can see they had plans. Whereas maybe lately with the movies, so it doesn't seem like there's a plan. And then also at the end you got the end credit of Wanda and
and Quicksilver.
Quicksilver, yeah, their introduction. So you know they're going to be a big player, or players kind of going forward. So I liked how they set up the seeds going forward, even so far as even plot lines. So here it was Shield wanting to protect the world, and that kind of feeds into the next movie being, well, in the how we saw it, Age of Ultron. And then how that filtered in. So it was really cool to see, you know, that introduction into the larger universe. And I think what I also liked was there weren't any really cameos from other players here. It was just focused on Captain America. And just him trying to figure out what type of soldier he is now. You know, he's not a soldier anymore. He's a spy. But I think that's where I enjoyed the plot lines and the changes.
I think you definitely hit it on the head, you know, even with how you started it off. And look, I mean, by now it's very clear, you know, a couple episodes deep, we're definitely not trying to, you know, be all controversial or have fights for the sake of fighting and that sort of thing. Granted, difference in opinions do make things interesting. So it's always sometimes bittersweet when you make a point that I was already aiming to make, and I'm like, you know. So the whole thing about moving from war to a spy thriller, for me, I think that was the number one thing that stood out. And I mean, look, I don't know about you, as much as I've always loved this movie, by the way, I haven't seen it in the longest time.
I think that's what we say every episode, right?
That's the other thing I was going to mention.
I guess that's part of this recap series. We're delayed gratifying ourselves. If that makes sense.
Yes. It adds to the fun and excitement because
you remember key moments, but then when you rewatch, you're like, oh, actually, there's a lot more going on.
I mean, it's one thing, you know, some of our movies we've said that I didn't quite like it, now I like it, or I liked it, now I don't quite like it. But even if you like a movie you liked before, it's still like, damn, you know, it almost hits you like something new, something fresh. But as much as I've always enjoyed it, I don't know how hard the genre shift hit me at the time. Now it certainly stood out a lot more. And keep in mind, right, you know, not to mention, you know, the next Captain America too much, but it's also a different genre. You know, so I'm just like, and, you know, the Russos were at the helm of it as well. So I don't know how it came about. And if memory serves, I feel like there's only one other instance where they did this, which was Doctor Strange. When it became a horror, the second one, and you know, and part of me is like, Marvel, how could you not look at this nugget and, you know, not beat it to death, but at least here and there sprinkle it in a little more. They tend to lean a little too much towards doing the same thing again and again. But, you know, we'll say that for the movies as they come. So, for me, that's what knocked this thing completely out of the park. And here's the thing, right? We're not just talking genre shift for the sake of genre shift. There's an actual tonal shift. If you look at the color grading, you know, it's got this darker. Look, it was dark back then, but it's almost like another shade of dark.
It was like, obviously, old dark.
That's what I'm trying to say. It was retro, it was wartime. Whereas here, you know, you kind of use that blue filter / tints that they tend to use in, you know, classic spy movies and all. So there's that, but even how they're carrying themselves. Did you see how Captain America was laying everyone's asses out like there's nothing in the, you know, maybe getting a little ahead of myself, but just to emphasize how they did a proper tonal shift throughout the movie.
They say Captain America, Winter Soldier, but I would say those two weren't even like perfect, like they were part of it. They weren't like the main characters. There were other characters filling in all the time.
It was about the whole crumbling, if you will, of their world, you know.
Because I was pleasantly surprised as to how much screen time Nick Fury got.
Yes.
So I was like, oh wow, this is actually, you know, it's like the actual spy is doing the spy stuff.
I was going to say, he's the spy. So, you know, who else are you going to have pretty much at the helm and at the center of the story? So, all that to say, they had a proper tonal shift. And what an amazing execution, you know. And then the other things, once again, you know, as you've mentioned, how the discipline to make it a self-contained story for me, I think it always stands out a lot more when I watch the older stuff, if we think of where we've ended up in the modern movies. And everything else is pretty much, on par with what you said before. I do want to highlight the Sam Wilson element as well, because for me, it was like, it even got to a point where, I don't know if you've seen them, the memes are like doing the rounds quite a bit of that on your left sort of thing. So I'd even forgotten about that scene until the memes reminded me lately. But it still didn't hit quite, it didn't hit home quite as much in terms of this is when we first see Sam Wilson. So seeing there, I'm like, oh yeah, because you see Sam run first. It's like, oh, so that scene is going to be here. And secondly, this is also where they introduced him. And with how it wasn't like, as you said, just solely on Captain America, because ultimately it's more about S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. encompasses quite a lot of different characters, and to see how all of them come into play as far as the stakes are concerned and how they're trying to prevent things or make things happen depending on which side you're on. I think the execution, man, was quite amazing. So to get into some more specific things, I'd like to start off with the action, right? Like, man, the action was insane. The choreography was insane.
So for me, it wasn't even just the fights. Like, you enjoy good fights. For me, it was the car chases.
Yes,
I think the first car chase when Fury just starts getting hit by police cars. Just like, what?
I think,
and it was good high-speed car chase to start off and set the whole tone for the movie.
To try and give it a term, this movie, and which is especially impressive. Granted, we're talking Captain America, so you have to adapt to him. But at the same time, we've seen how they can easily veer left because it's a superhero movie. So again, to try and give it some umbrella term, I feel like it was grounded action, which is crazy underrated and so amazingly executed. As you've mentioned, the car chases definitely together with all the different fight scenes, the spaces in which they were fighting. There's a fight on the street, there's a fight in the helicarrier, there's a fight on the ship, there's a fight in the elevator. These self-contained spaces which add to the tension of whatever scene that we're currently dealing with. I think, oh man, that was
And like the elevator one stands up because there's no space and there's like 15 people there.
And again, this is probably the third or fourth time I'm saying it now, but seeing things you've seen before and that you have not forgotten, but there's certain details that you maybe were not aware of before, and then now they hit you in the face. The elevator scene, yes, I remember there were a couple of guys in there with him. I remember him saying before we start, does anyone want to get out? But I did not recall how many
of them there were. And like, stop.
They were packed like sardines in there, And I remember, of course, again, him saying, does anyone want to get out? Which speaks to his awareness that he's being trapped. But I wasn't quite sure how he came to realize it. So seeing those pieces come together, the guy stepping in and, Frank Grillo, we'll talk about a bit more about him. He's the leader of that.
No, Frank.
Man, amazing
really
dude.
Good action star.
He did amazing work in this movie. He steps in with those two guys and try to chit-chat. Yeah, man, how's it going? Whatever. And he's like, we're in an elevator. We're in our headquarters. Why the hell does this guy have his hand on his gun? Nah, something is off. And then the next guy, the suits come in. I thought they were going to be casualties. Cap was like, nah, why is this homie sweating? Something is wrong. And that's the thing, right? Because with action, it's very easy to just say fight. But it's not just about the fight.
The suspense, the build-up.
There's the build-up, there's the motivation again. Why are we fighting? What creates the need for this fight? What is the first instance that leads to the, to the fighting? So I think, man, the build-up to this was just amazing, man.
Action sequences, I would say even when Cap and Bucky were fighting in the helicarrier on the glass.
Yes. This is when Cap was trying to win the Charlie card.
For me, it was giving me anxiety because I'm just expecting that glass to break the whole time. And I'm just like, keeping me on the edge of my seat. And I was like, oh man, this was done really, really well.
And we touched on it, but I think to delve a little deeper.
No, because you see, like, in any other movie, you step on the glass, it starts cracking. So I'm expecting that the whole time.
And these are like, strong, heavy dudes also that are doing their thing. We touched on it earlier, but I think to delve a little further into it, Nick Fury's escape, basically, the brilliance of it, and for me to start by summing it up, I like how they showed why Nick Fury is that guy.
Yeah.
Because you hear all the stories, you see his position and whatever. And I mean, even with Captain Marvel, I said it would have been dope to have a retro Nick Fury be like the spy Nick Fury and to see, his come up and all of that, because we tend to get anecdotes of it. But I think this was as good as it gets, just in terms of, his intelligence and whatever. And keep in mind, right, the car AI was trying to do its thing. And there were moments where he's, hold off, okay, do this, do that. He's guiding it. It's got its own data and connections and whatnot, and figures, okay, this is the best course of action. He's like, no, here's how we're gonna do it. I'm like, this dude is sharp as a flipping whip, Even with him, just like Captain America, that awareness element where he sees the cops, even when he, made a snap comments like, do you want to see my permit or whatever he said. But again, he realizes, something is off. Before the machine told him that there are no cops in the area. So he realized that, man, that this guy, he's still as sharp as ever.
Throughout the movie as well, he's like 10 steps ahead.
Dude, I mean, the fake out dead and all of that.
Just to find out that the beginning scene, he knew it was a dirty ship. You know what I mean?
And then he
hired people,
I mean, how many times do you talk about motivation, right? So to clarify, because I remember I kept getting confused. I'm like, man, are they framing him? Did he really hire those dudes? And I was like, oh, so he knew that there's intel about whatever's going wrong at S.H.I.E.L.D. on the ship. So what he did is hire pirates to put them on the ship.
So he can send his people.
So that you create a reason for your agents to go and retrieve that information. Yeah. I'm like, come on.
And if this was for your first movie ever watching the MCU, you would have bit hard on him die.
Yes.
Because I was like, wait, he actually died. I was like, when I was watching, I was like, wait, he died. How did he come back?
Yeah.
Obviously, they showed us how he came back. And I was like, oh wow, that was like...
No, it was proper, man. And it wasn't some off-screen kill where, Nick Fury... No. You see the doctors trying to revive him. You see everyone who's meant to buy into the story, the story. And I can't recall my reaction to this when I initially saw it. But
same. I don't even remember this scene.
I can believe myself believing it.
Yeah.
Even with the whole superhero movies. But again, remember, this is kind of really early on in the MCU world building. We're talking like 2014. And this is still when they were doing like 2 movies a year, so it could be about 8 or so movies in. So I definitely bought into that, especially with all the other events that were taking place beforehand. I mean, it wasn't exactly the most random of events. So
the thing here, people got hurt and they stayed hurt.
Dude, yes, thank you. I don't know if I would have remembered, but I know when watching it, I wanted to mention that the inflicting of pain, and again, as dark and sadistic as I always sound when I raise these things, but I want I want people to go to that point, which of course adds to my frustration about recent Marvel. Another thing I've said many times, which is you guys have shown that you know how to balance it out. Obviously they are very let's say risk averse as far as showing blood and
that's
cool.
fine.
But we were able to see and feel the damage inflicted. I mean, even again, Captain America himself,
when he's getting shot, bro,
and how I was surprised at them showing him getting shot that many times, and even the amount of
and then him just reacting.
Yes, not on some shrugging it off type thing, And even as hard as he was kicking, all those asses, particularly on the ship, I'm like, this guy is just going hard, even in the elevator. I'm like, he's inflicting real pain. He's not just trying to subdue them. He's trying to proper mess them up. So I think, definitely kudos to them for giving the action its due diligence, where this was concerned. I think then some of the other characters, Alexander Pierce, Robert Redford, the great Gatsby himself. Man, I remember being excited, upon seeing him initially, and even now, this guy talk about gravitas, talk about presence.
Bro,
this guy has it. For those who may not be aware, because he's of course not the biggest star in modern times, but
back in the day,
he he was the guy.
He's the man.
I don't even think we can compare him to anyone now. Probably maybe an era or two earlier compared to now, because we now know we're in this, weird love as far as movie stars and so on. But if you think of people like maybe John Travolta, I don't know what other major, stars we've had like recently. Certainly not DiCaprio, but he was a major star of his day.
Yeah.
Maybe Clint Eastwood also, somewhere around there. Way back. For me personally, this, funny enough, is probably the second movie or something that I've seen him in. So in high school, we read the book The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
And then they showed us the movie. In 2013, I believe, so Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, starred in the modern version of it. But yeah, Robert Redford starred in the old school version. So I've always kind of known him to have that sort of stature based on that. And then seeing him literally decades later and still having that power to just hold you, draw you in, which again,
and so unassuming initially, eh?
My man.
I would not have thought he was the puppet master.
The brilliance of this movie is understated. Because think about it, you're talking superhero genre.
That's the thing.
You hardly have an actual superpowered being, almost at any level. Like this, Captain America is Bucky, but it's human beings just doing what they do at the fullest level, and the acting behind it was just top notch as well.
I mean, we always say, a great hero is made by a great villain, but here there is no one singular villain. It's a corporation. Oh, you know what I mean? It's an entity.
What? It's one of the most well-balanced, shall we say, I'm trying to find this other word, but basically, usually, right, whenever you have multiple villains, there's something lacking in there. But I don't know if we've watched a movie where they've balanced so many different villains this well,
Yes.
I don't know up to this point, and even going forward, it may not be a thing we see again, because you're talking Alexander Pierce, you're talking the Winter Soldier,
Frank Grillo,
and his team,
even Hollywood the glasses still
exactly, and the Hydra organization. Like there's multiple, as you said, from multiple angles,
and they're all interlinked really well.
Yes, no one is overshadowing the other one. This one gets their shine, and then you come through here, and then you come through here, and no matter how much time they get on screen, they were hella impactful, and none of them are forgettable. So
and the thing is, it wasn't like a big reveal. I think it was just a scene where you just kind of like, oh, okay, he's the bad guy now.
Is this the one at his crib?
Was that the one?
Wasn't there one
a little bit before?
Before then, it was
the Winter Soldier when he walked in?
Not necessarily. Yeah, the Winter Soldier walked into his crib. That's also where he killed the maid.
Yeah.
That's where they kind of drove it home that he's the villain. Because remember, before here, you're still confused about why he's trying to isolate Nick Fury, why he's trying to capture Captain America. It's like, okay, is it because, as he said, right, he initially had the meeting with Captain America. What did Nick Fury tell you? Why was he at your apartment? And he could figure out that Captain was lying about the reason. So he's like, okay, go catch him. So you don't know if it's a matter of, okay, this is just treason, or is it the bad guy trying to suppress the good guy, right? And then the Winter Soldier appears to be doing his own thing on the side. Then you get to homie's apartment.
Yeah.
And then the Winter Soldier is there, almost sneaking up on him. And you're thinking, what? But unfortunately for me, because I didn't know exactly that he brought him in, but I'm like, okay, he's not trying to kill him. He's his guy. I figured out now. But I can imagine upon initially watching it, I probably felt like, yo, is he also gonna kill this dude now? And then he's just sitting there, like, having a casual conversation. Yeah. And I absolutely love what happened next. And if you know me, it's no surprise by now. The housekeeper comes back in. Oh, sorry, I forgot my phone. And the way he was so chilled with how he did it, he's like,
why did you have to come back? Why didn't you knock?
And here's the thing, right? Which is a brilliance in a brilliant moment in writing and a display of amazing work. The Winter Soldier is right there. The actual
killer,
the actual killer, assassin, and all of that. He's like, nah,
myself.
I'm grabbing this gun. I'm gonna kill you myself. Just in the most nice and chill, casual manner. And I'm like, this guy is dark as hell, but I love it, Which is, in a sense, a flex of power as well.
Yeah.
Between how he was talking to the Winter Soldier before then, and just that whole thing of, hey man, I also can do this on my own. I think
there's a reason why I'm here.
Yeah, that was brilliant. So Robert Redford, man, for me, Absolutely brilliant.
He's good, man.
I don't recall if he ever comes back.
No, I think it's one and
not.
done, yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah,
because again, this is still one of those days where it's like not everyone has to come back every time or drag their stories out.
It's like an Obadiah's day. You know what I mean? One and done.
And as a result, granted, I don't think Alexander Pierce is in the same conversation, but he deserves to be after watching this. But with Obadiah's day, he then became a classic villain. You know, because he was a one and done. And Alexander Pierce definitely deserves a similar level of shine. Yes, without a doubt, man. Anyone else then you wanna jump onto next?
I mean, the casting was good. You know, it's what I expect. I don't want to say too much about it. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. Amazing. It was really cool to see her spy skills on display.
Got deeper into her spy bag than
espionage, the martial arts, even the tech savviness. When they were at the phone store.
At the Apple store.
Apple store.
And the guys come there like, if you need my help, and I'm just like, man, you're the last person they need at this point.
But even there, it was a little jab at DC, because Cap had the glasses.
Okay, go on.
So you know how people say Superman is just Clark Kent with glasses.
Yes. Oh,
but then I was like, that's what I'm thinking, because it seemed like it was a jab. It was like,
okay, I never picked up on that sense before, but okay.
It was like, surely this is like very subtly put in there. But yeah, anyways, but it was really nice to see just her time to shine, really.
I was actually gonna say, because before we've seen her do her thing or whatever, but she's always been more on the side character side of things. Whereas now she's practically co-starring. You know, she drove quite a good chunk of the story.
And then, I think that's mainly it.
Especially as far as like, you know, those that stood out. I like the subtlety. Yes, Sam. The subtlety behind how much they used him. You know? You got him in. You see that, okay, he's a solid dude, which is actually quite interesting because, look, at this stage, you know, his Captain America movie is way down the line. But what I felt when he got the shield, and I mean, look, I'm not even gonna shy from it. Definitely, you know, as a black man and all, I'm like, great, go for it. But that being said, I don't want to take away the classic elements that we need when someone is taking on a mantle, especially a pre-existing one. We got a whole movie showing us why Steve Rogers deserved the shield. You know, we really felt for him. They even did a young recap in this, you know, when they were at the museum, talking about how he got denied multiple times, but in spite of that, he came through. You know, we saw this guy has a heart of gold and that sort of thing. And I've always wondered when it comes to Sam, I'm like, look, you don't have to do it before. The order can be however, because you're also not trying to regurgitate the same storyline, right? Give him the shield and then after that improve himself, that's fine. But I don't know if they ever really got to that point. But watching this movie, I was like, okay, I'm seeing elements of it. And you know what? If that's all they ever do, I'll take it. I would like more still, you know, because there's that whole support council thing.
Yes, and that's such a big thing. It's showing how good of a person he is.
Man.
He's giving back. He's looking after his people. That sort of thing.
And even with understanding, you know, the perils of war and how it can weigh on you, they had that conversation about it's your brain, right? It's just too soft, you know. Like, he did 2 tours, and even the actual group that he was in, I forgot what they call them, you know, those guys that fly around, you know. Even Cap was like, you told me you were blind. He's like, I never said blind, you know. That was pretty cool.
Even just showing that he's out, but for the right reasons.
Yes. And then he's like, I mean, when he offered himself to take on that particular mission, and Cap was like, nah, man, I can't expect that from you. And he's like, hey, man, where you go, I go, that sort of thing. So just that full-on allegiance. I think Cap already saw those elements along the way, and then he, of course, then, you know, came to that conclusion that, nah, this guy deserves a shield. So it was nice to just get some reminders in that aspect. But again, going back to my initial point, I like the subtlety of how they used them. They didn't then try to make it like a whole full-on co-op and whatnot. Like Sam was in there, and then at the end, because still it's I don't know, how do we call this, you know, that relationship between Bucky and Cap, that battle that the two of them have to face. You don't put other people in there.
It was just them,
So that's exactly when they had his wings clipped, and then Cap is the only one left to face Bucky at the end. So I enjoyed that element. Then I think the one other major character, man, is of course Bucky himself. You know, drops some breadcrumbs here and there. I don't know what the opposite of shout out is, but whatever it is, I have to give it to one of my homies. I don't think I'm gonna name him though. It's fine. I'll spare you this time around. So back in 2011, Captain America drops. I hadn't even seen it at that point. And then my homie tells me about what's going on in there. And then he mentioned Bucky's dead and which I didn't mind fine. But then he told me that he comes back later as the Winter Soldier, because obviously this is from the comic books. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then usually when people tell me stuff about movies, by the time I get to watch it, I would have forgotten. 3 years later, I still remembered very well that Bucky is the Winter Soldier. So I lost out on that surprise element, unfortunately. So I'm just like, oh, damn you, But that being said, I think it was still a brilliant build-up towards that moment. And I think even just him as, one of the main antagonists, just what is your take overall in terms of his resurgence and keeping in mind this is now a different character than who he played before?
Yeah, I don't know. Hey? On the rewatch, I realized he doesn't actually feature as prominently as I thought he did.
Yes.
I think it was just the beginning for him, so there's not much for me to say.
Yeah.
It was enough to show that he's different from what we knew, but there is still that inner turmoil.
Yes.
Like when he was before he got reprogrammed, he's like, "Who is this?" And he was
I know him. Yeah.
So it was nice. I think shout out to Sebastian Stan as well.
Yeah.
In his fight choreography, the knife skills were insane. And he's actually doing that because I've seen videos of him in that, training for that stuff. So that when you see the knife flying from one hand to another, it's actually him.
Amazing.
So yeah, like shout out for that.
Yeah.
But also he just really plays it well because Bucky Barnes, fun-loving character, Steve's best friend, but Winter Soldier, very broody character, melodramatic, and ruthless, and you do get that ruthlessness there because he just pulls the one guy out of the car when they're doing a high-speed chase. It's still well, he has on the glasses, just pulls him out, just like,
and then he just throws him again.
And even when he's fighting Cap and he's coming in with the iron arm, and you just check him, he misses, but you just check the big dent in the so you can see he's not pulling any punches. So just to see that ruthlessness come across, I really like that.
Yeah, no, he did a fantastic job in this, man.
Didn't have many words to say, but your presence.
That's exactly what I'm trying to speak on. The range in acting was quite amazing. There's this thing that people like to do online, and I absolutely hate it with all my heart, where they'll say, for instance, Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2 said 3,000 words, and he was paid 3 million, so he got 1,000 per word or whatever. And I'm like, you idiots! You're now reducing acting in its entirety to just words. And I mean, how many times have we had, whether villain or not, amazing characters that hardly say anything? Acting is about full embodiment, and I think you hardly get any better example, certainly in the MCU, than what Sebastian Stan did as the Winter Soldier. And not to throw a spanner in the works, but it certainly occurred to me as well that Homie actually doesn't feature as much. And to be fair, we did touch on this point even with Batman v Superman, that the marketing of movies does count, because I mean, if you selling a particular idea, then you gotta deliver on it. So are we then saying Captain America the Winter Soldier was overselling it, or is it okay? Because in as much as he appears just here and there, he was quite impactful to the story as a whole.
But I don't think he was part of the main, you know what I mean? He's part of the story. He wasn't the main story. You expect the person named in the title to be the main player.
Because there's more Hydra story than a Winter Soldier story, basically. Okay, I get you. Yeah, so I think...
in that sense, maybe they were marketing it, and fair on them. If at the time people bought in, they bought in.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's always going to be about what's more popular, what's going to catch people. Yeah.
But obviously, with the product you got, if you didn't get as much Winter Soldier, I don't think you're going to be too fast at all.
Yeah. That's why I'm questioning only the marketing, the portrayal, and all of that. I don't even think I wish they showed him more, given how well they executed this. Obviously, there is a version where he's there start to finish, but they did a brilliant enough job here that I'm just like, nah, man, it's cool. I'm not even stressing about it. But it is something I just wanted, to address. Now, did this movie even have any low lights? For me, there weren't any that really stood out. But let's see how the conversation goes.
For me, low lights, I don't think too much. I think mainly because the flow of the movie. Because the next thing you know, like you got your Nick Fury car scene, then he's dying. Then the next thing, Cap is getting, in the elevator. Like, it just didn't stop. It just carried on going.
Yes.
So I think from that point, you're not gonna have many lowlights because the flow was so good.
Yeah.
I mean it's like 2 hours and some change, but you don't feel it, and you're constantly engaged.
Yeah.
So that's So I don't think I found any major lowlights that I can think of.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't necessarily go as far as say they weren't there. I'll say there weren't any that made a lasting impression. Maybe we could have seen something, but then everything else just gets your attention, and that's what at the forefront of our mind. So shout out to them. This was definitely, man, without a doubt, one of the most well-paced movies ever. And I mean, again, we said this ad nauseum that doesn't matter how long your movie is. We've watched movies that are like an hour and a half that drag on. Pacing is everything, and these guys absolutely knocked it out of the park. Just having you at the edge of your seat, biting your nails with whatever the hell is currently on screen.
And
they did quite an amazing
job. You had to
job.
pay attention as well.
Yes, you had to pay attention, and you had to listen. Because again, this, as much as there was spectacle, it was driven by actual story. So because it could easily get confusing. I won't lie. There's certain moments I had to be like, okay, concentrate. Okay, what's happening? Okay, they started this. Okay, so this scientist dude was hired by Shield right from the get-go. So that's when Hydra infiltrated. So from the start, Hydra's always just to follow the pieces and to be able to see, okay, who's on whose side and what exactly is happening. Like I said, even the whole Nick Fury thing about, okay, wait, did he hire those guys? Did he not? And like, oh, damn, the genius of Nick Fury. Yeah. So they kept you on your toes, from even a visual perspective. I mean, even I think of, again, the elevator fight, and just those heart-stopping moments. Cap jumping out with his shield, because like, okay, it's all there, but they keep coming back. How's he gonna get out? And then he's just there with his shield, boom, and then he just gets up,
Yeah, and then even in that scene towards the tail, when he's jumping out with his motorcycle and it's closing, and he's like,
yes, exactly, And so that's the thing, right? Which exactly speaks to what I'm saying. Yeah. The doors close, he's out like, whoo. But then the spikes come out. You're like, no! And then he's like, nah, I'm gonna make a plan. Then he just jumps on the elevator. So all of that, man. Sam Wilson, 41st floor, southeast window. And you're like, oh! And then only then do you see the Fury banking to catch him. Like, no, you're not there yet. And then he goes in 41st floor. He's like, it's not like they write the floor numbers on the outside of the building, Which is another brilliant reminder of how well you can add jokes, not take you away from the seriousness of the moment and not going too far.
Speaking of jokes, it wasn't jokes, it was banter. In my opinion.
Yes.
It was banter between friends, and everybody likes the banter.
Yeah.
Oh, with like you and I, we have banter all the time.
Of course.
So I think it translated well in this movie, because Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, is just like, how's this? With Sharon from nursing,
she was going
this one from that one, with Steve.
Movie,
she was just like, hey, don't be stop being single.
I think that's another thing we didn't highlight enough. We've of course spoken about how brilliantly she played the spy role, but her character development, seeing a whole other side of her.
Because in Iron Man 2, she was just like very stoic, not saying much, and
about the job, and
she's just poking
she's
fun
opened
at
up
Steve
a little more. But again, right? I mean, she's been, I don't know how long has she been with Shield, but just as far as our awareness, she's a couple movies deep, a little more comfortable, more accustomed to the people around her now. Because usual spy missions, you go 3-6 months, you're out, you move on. But here, she's a little more involved with the people, so it of course makes sense. And over time, there's an openness that comes about. And one of her greatest moments of character development at the end there, where she's now ready to expose all the Shield and Hydra files, then Alexander appears, man, the silverest of silver tongue devils, man. He's just there like, hey, I don't know if you know people wanting, I don't know if you want people
to know what
knowing as much about you, all that you've done. And then she hesitated. I'm like, yo, this guy, man, talking about going down swinging, dog, and even the threat of, I don't think you want a hole in your chest, And then she ended up doing it herself. So those 2 moments where she still released those files and she was still willing to sacrifice herself, basically, it's like, man, amazing job, One low light we slightly touched on earlier, but I want to emphasize it. Not enough Maria Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, not enough Maria Hill. And I mean, we've said in all the other movies that it would have been nice, but if there was ever a time for her to shine,
because
this would have
who's
been
the
perfect.
one person Fury called Maria Hill, guys?
And my problem,
Maria Hill.
Not even problem. Yeah, actually, man. Another low light, slight tweak that they could have made when Cap was like, trust. When Nick Fury said to Cap, trust no one.
Why not
he
Maria
could have just
Hill?
said, yo, only trust Maria Hill, and then the 2 of them from the jump.
Because who's the one that knew Fury was still alive? Maria Hill.
Exactly, dog. He recruited her on son. Now you far enough from this that I know that you aren't a part of this mess. So that could have come, nice and full circle. But she was still involved in any case. Maybe he wanted her by his side.
Yeah.
Okay. Because as you said, she was the one who knew he's alive, and so she's like, gonna let her guard my life rather. Yes, almost forgot. Speaking of which, because now this reminds me of that scene when where exactly? This is when they brought the guys to see Nick Fury's alive.
Yes.
That doctor is one of the Russo brothers.
Oh,
yes.
He looked familiar.
Yes.
I was like,
yes.
very familiar.
So shout out to them for their little cameo. One of our cameos, Abed, Danny Puli.
Yes, it was just a few seconds, but it was like, oh yeah, I know. And speaking of cameos, if you're a UFC fan, George St. Pierre. He's a UFC fan.
I don't know if he was Russian or Ukrainian. Is it that guy who? His face looks so familiar, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe he's a typical bad guy or something.
He's a very famous UFC fighter. Yeah.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Doing it for the Canadians.
Oh, is he Canadian?
Yeah, French Canadian.
Damn, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's also a little cameo there.
I think, man, pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, that's all the things I wanted to say, including the ones that, ended up forgetting about. I don't know if there's any other last comments.
I mean, you wanted to chat about Frank Grillo for a little bit?
Frank Grillo, yeah, man, just to give the homie his flowers, I remember even with, like Iron Man 3, I mentioned the Guy Pearce, I expected his career to be bigger and all of that, given how brilliant he is. Frank Grillo's kind of the same. I mean, when was it? From last year or something, if not early on in the year, I started rewatching Prison Break. And I see Frank Grillo, I'm like, oh damn, because there was a time where, around when Captain America dropped, right, with the Winter Soldier, I'm seeing homie all over the place. I saw him in this, I saw him in the series Billions. And I think,
Billions as well?
he featured in one of the later seasons.
He's one of those that's kind of everywhere.
Yeah, there was a time where he had like his Walter Goggins moment, where you do your actor thing in a couple of dope productions here and there. And then it kind of just slipped away, unfortunately. But this is, of course, during the prime of that time. So I just wanted to take a specific moment to just give him his flowers, the great job that he did here. And of course, they did the tease at the end of him not being quite dead.
But
he does come through. He does come through in the later movies, yeah. So we'll chat about him again when they pop up there. I just wanted to make sure that homie got his flowers.
He's an action movie star. You see him everywhere.
And what I like about him, there's this thing about, for instance, if you look at Alexander Pierce, Robert Redford. Classically, he's like a good guy, but he's a great actor who can play whatever.
Yeah.
But there's some guys that have inherent qualities that make them perfect for certain type of roles. We talk about he's got a face for comedy. Yeah. This guy just looks like a villain and whatever. And Frank Grillo just has that ruggedness.
Muscle, he's a high muscle. Yeah.
He's just got that rugged look and element to him, which of course makes him a great bad guy, physical bad guy. And he did that.
And that was his role.
Absolutely brilliantly, So I think that then pretty much brings us to everything that we wanted to say.
Yeah, I think so.
The one other thing, of course, would be our rating for this.
Yes.
What would you give it?
I think I would give it an 8.
Yeah. I'm giving it a solid 8 as well.
Not much else to say.
Thinking, man, could I want to go higher? I'm thinking, because I'm like, dude, if it's that
so
paced,
what is it?
if it hits that many elements, and
the last 8 we did maybe was Iron Man and Avengers,
yeah.
So is Winter Soldier better than?
And that's the thing, right? Which is why even whenever we started our reviews, I can't remember if we said this on camera or not, but for us, we said it's kind of, our guiding principle that it's not always going to be in relation to other movies. Not that we have to ignore them. That is a very fair question, but it's also because different movies are kind of scaled differently, And my thing is, with this being a relatively smaller, self-contained movie, but knocking damn near every element out of the park.
Then you can kind of compare to Iron Man 1.
Yeah, you can compare to Iron Man 1, but I think this one was better paced than Iron Man 1. And that's the thing, right? Because you must keep in mind there's different ways to show brilliance, to be exciting and so on. Yes, I can talk about it being paced better, but it doesn't mean that the quiet moments in Iron Man 1 were worthless. There's more spectacle here, bar for bar, compared to Iron Man, but doesn't inherently mean that it's better. But I think it's a conversation that's certainly worth having. And I mean, look, with every subsequent movie, there is some underlying goal of trying to do better. So it's not an exact cardinal sin for something to be, placed as better than whatever movie we found to be great before, in this case being Iron Man. So I think for me, I'm actually going to go 9, man.
9,
With how many things were just brilliantly, placed, paced, explained, and everything. And quick and easy example is if you think of how many elements we criticize in the other movies versus this one, it just tells you what an amazing job they did,
Okay.
Yeah, so I would definitely then place it there, which I suppose will give us, that 8.5 split difference.
Yeah.
But with that, now comes the top 5, right? We got Iron Man 1, we got Avengers, we got Captain America. Captain America 1, and then Thor and
1.
Wait, no, Iron Man 3 and then Thor.
Oh
yeah, Iron Man 3 and then Thor. Without a doubt, Thor is now leaving the chat.
Yes.
But where do we place the Winter Soldier? Is it a top 3 movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, Iron Man 3 goes to 5. And then in 4th place, we've got
First Avenger.
Yeah, Captain America, the First Avenger. Now, between Iron Man 1 and the Avengers, where do we place the Winter Soldier?
I'd go 2.
I've already been preemptively thinking about it, and I knew it was going to be between 2 and 1, actually. Yeah. Again, in spite of what I just said, there's just something about Iron Man 1, guys. Again, if you're here, you're a geek, especially if you stuck around this long as well. You're full on geek, you follow these movies.
You see all over.
So you know that Iron Man 1 dog.
It holds a special place.
Calling nostalgia is what it is, Not that it will never get knocked off, but it's just not going to be an easy task. So the Winter Soldier then goes in 2nd place.
I'm happy with that.
Super comfortable with that. Cool, man. With that said, brings us to the very ending of our review. Shout out for sticking around, Drop us that like, drop us that subscribe, hit us with the comments, and then follow us on Instagram. Otherwise, we'll check y'all at the next review then. Peace.